Dexter is not just a show about a psychopath hiding behind the guise of an ordinary citizen, but also a profound psychological drama where every character has their own unique inner world as well as dark sides. The protagonist, Dexter Morgan, is a blood spatter expert at the Miami police who, at first glance, appears to be an ordinary person, but his life is full of terrible secrets. From the very beginning, the viewer understands that this hero is not typical, and it is this contrast between his social role and hidden impulses that makes him such an intriguing and chilling character. Dexter, burdened by deep guilt over his past and the death of his mother, was raised in an atmosphere of violence and pain, which impacted his psyche and led him to develop a brutal need to kill. But he doesn't kill indiscriminately, he seeks justice. Dexter makes the decision to only kill those who have escaped punishment for their crimes, becoming a kind of arbiter of justice. This inner struggle, his desire to cleanse the world of criminals on one hand, evokes sympathy, but on the other, raises a series of moral questions that remain relevant throughout the series. Dexter's psychology and moral conflict. Throughout the seasons, the primary theme is Dexter's battle with himself. He knows he is a killer, but on the other hand, he tries to justify his actions because, in his view, his victims are people who, for some reason, avoided justice, people who deserve their fate. This moral ambiguity and psychological duality make Dexter such a complex character. He is both a victim and an executioner, which pushes him to constantly search for his own boundaries. Where does justice end and cruelty begin? Dexter's complexity lies in the fact that his desires cannot be easily analyzed. He is not a pure monster who delights in murder. On the contrary, his inner world is filled with anxiety and a struggle with himself. He realizes that he cannot fully control his dark desires, and thus, he constantly tries to limit them by following the strict rules that his dark passenger, his inner voice, has taught him. This confrontation, the struggle for control, and the need to hide his nature from others make him particularly frightening. He is not just a monster. He is a man who, in one way or another, strives to be part of society and, at times, may even display genuine feelings. The dark passenger as symbol and inner struggle. The dark passenger is a metaphor that plays a crucial role in the series. Initially, it is perceived as something dark and ominous, an entity driving Dexter's actions. However, as the plot unfolds, it becomes clear that this dark side is not just brutal impulses, but a metaphor for Dexter's internal conflicts. He doesn't want to be a killer, but he feels that his actions are necessary for his life to have any meaning. Each new season of Dexter represents a kind of battle between Dexter and his dark passenger. In a sense, he looks for ways to rid himself of this part of him, but he constantly faces situations where this voice proves too powerful. Over the course of the series, he tries to suppress his dark side, but inevitably encounters moments when his inner voice becomes the Dexter that continues to influence his decisions and actions. Blood and its significance. In the series, blood is not just a physical phenomenon, but a key symbol intricately tied to Dexter's personal life. Blood reminds him of his past, of the cruel murders he was forced to witness in his childhood. Blood is both the symbol of murder and the symbol of his own existence. On the surface, he works in a lab analyzing blood, but internally he cannot shake the feeling that blood will haunt him, no matter how hard he tries to change his life. This symbolism of blood permeates the entire series and helps create its chilling atmosphere. He doesn't just process blood, he becomes part of it, absorbing it as something that defines his inner essence. The act of killing, the bloodshed, the dismemberment, everything becomes a part of his life just as much as his attempts to hide from justice. Dexter's rivals, the history of antagonists. To fully understand how deep and layered the world of Dexter is, it is necessary to examine not only the hero himself but also those he encounters throughout the show. The series features several memorable and chilling antagonists, each of whom represents something more than just a villain. One of the most famous is the Trinity Killer, a murderer who uses his knowledge of sign language to communicate with his victims and create a psychological atmosphere of fear. Like Dexter, he possesses a deep understanding of human psychology and uses this knowledge to manipulate people. His actions become something more than just crimes. They turn into a psychological game where every movement carries hidden meaning. Another interesting antagonist is Miguel Prado, a killer with incredible cruelty and cold-bloodedness who is always able to predict Dexter's actions and attempts to outsmart him. In this character, Dexter faces not just an enemy but a mirror image of himself. Miguel understands how Dexter works, making him all the more dangerous. The theme of family and Dexter's inner world. Despite all his dark desires and cruelty, Dexter is a man who is trying to create a normal family. His relationships with his sister Deborah and his wife Rita play an important role in his life. He cares for them, trying to maintain the appearance of normalcy. But the problem is that deep down, Dexter knows his dark side could destroy everything he builds. He cannot fully open up to them, and this leads to an inner conflict that only intensifies with each season. His relationships with his children, especially his son, also intertwine with his dark side. He feels that he must protect his family, but at the same time, his fear lies in the fact that one day his dark impulses may lead to tragedy. This constant balance between wanting to be a good father and his uncontrollable inner world creates tension, making Dexter an even more psycho-emotionally complex character. The psychological depth of the series. Dexter is not just a show about a psychopath. It is a whole universe where horror, moral dilemmas, and deep psycho-emotional conflicts converge. Through Dexter and his actions, we explore the concepts of justice, morality, and what it means to be human. This series doesn't leave the viewer indifferent. It makes them think about the nature of human cruelty and the boundaries we set for ourselves. Dexter's impact on the viewer. One of the most interesting aspects of Dexter is its ability to evoke contradictory feelings in viewers. Despite being a killer who brutally eliminates people, Dexter elicits sympathy and even understanding from us. This happens because the series creates space for empathy towards his character, showing his battle with inner demons and his attempts to integrate his dark side into normal society. The viewer finds themselves in a complex situation where they have to evaluate Dexter's actions through the lens of his motives. He doesn't just commit murders. He acts as a kind of judge, cleansing the world of those who have escaped punishment for their crimes. In this context, Dexter represents an anti-hero archetype. We begin to question what is truly evil and what is morally justified. He operates in a world where the law is not always fair, and, paradoxically, his personal morality may seem more perfected than the justice system itself. Dexter and his influence on those around him. For Dexter, as with most anti-heroes, an important aspect of his life is his interaction with those around him and how his dark side impacts them. His relationship with his sister, Deborah, is especially crucial. Despite her own achievements as a police officer, she becomes entangled in his double life. She doesn't suspect him for a long time, but as she gradually realizes something is wrong, she becomes yet another element in his internal struggle. Deborah is a character who finds balance between love and mistrust for her brother. This complex dynamic, shifting from complete devotion to open conflict, adds depth to the story and emphasizes the moral complexity of Dexter. On the other hand, his relationships with Rita and the children become an essential way for him to survive in society. For Dexter, family is a kind of protective barrier that helps him hide his dark nature. However, despite the outward normality, Dexter realizes that his presence in their lives could be dangerous. The moment his secrets begin to surface, his entire life is at risk. The theme of death and life in Dexter. Dexter is a series that constantly addresses the theme of death. For the main character, death is not just the end of existence, but the beginning of something new, a kind of cleansing. His killings are acts that suggest the world would be better off without people who don't deserve to live. However, as the series progresses, it becomes clear that Dexter begins to understand that his actions do not make the world cleaner, but only deepen his own internal suffering. It is crucial that Dexter portrays death not as something abstract, but as a process to which the protagonist approaches with respect and ritual. He carefully handles each body, cleans up all traces of blood, which can be interpreted as his attempt to organize and control a process he himself creates. This gives his murders a particular aesthetic cruelty, turning them into something more than just violence. Dexter's place in pop culture. Dexter became not just a show, but a cultural phenomenon that raised public and philosophical questions. It became the subject of numerous discussions, debates, and analytical materials. The show raised questions about the limits of morality, the meaning of justice, and societal responsibility. These questions continue to be relevant today, allowing Dexter to remain one of the most popular and discussed TV series in history. Moreover, the main character became an icon of pop culture. Dexter, with his calm demeanor and dark side, became a symbol of the very concept of the dark side of a person. His image has been reproduced in countless parodies, interviews, podcasts, and other forms of media. Even those who haven't watched the show are often familiar with its symbols, knives, plastic wrap, and lab settings. Death as a metaphor for change and transformation. In the series, death also serves as a metaphor for change and transformation. We see how death itself acts as a catalyst for the evolution of the characters, not only for Dexter, but also for those around him. For instance, the deaths of certain close characters push him to reflect on his place in the world and the consequences of his actions. Dexter and its place in pop culture. Dexter became more than just a TV series. It turned into a cultural phenomenon that touched on societal and philosophical issues. It sparked numerous discussions, debates, and analytical materials. The show's storyline raised questions about the boundaries of morality, the meaning of justice, and responsibility to society. These questions remain relevant to this day, allowing Dexter to stay among the most popular and widely discussed shows in television history. Moreover, the main character himself has become an icon of pop culture. Dexter, with his calm exterior and dark side, has come to symbolize the very concept of the dark side of human nature. His image has been reproduced in numerous parodies, interviews, podcasts, and other media formats. Even those who haven't watched the show are often familiar with its symbolism, knives, plastic wrap, and the forensic lab setting. Many critics and viewers also note that the show serves as a metaphor for a broader philosophical question. What if the justice system is flawed? If we all adhered to the idea that revenge and personal justice could be justified in a world where the law does not function fairly, what would our reality look like? Dexter forces us to consider the potential consequences of each person taking on the role of judge and executioner. Diving into Dexter's psychology. A crucial aspect of the series is, of course, the psychology of its main character. Dexter is not just a serial killer. He is a person with deep psychological trauma. His psyche developed throughout his life, starting with the tragic event of witnessing his mother's murder and leading to his present state, where he tries to live a normal life while following strict rules and laws. Dexter often questions himself. Can a person who has committed such horrific acts be a normal member of society? Can his feelings, such as love, friendship, and attachment, be genuine despite his dark nature? Interestingly, Dexter sets a goal for himself: to become better. He does not kill for pleasure. His actions are based on strict moral beliefs. However, the longer he follows this path, the more he loses his self-respect as he realizes that his ideals are not as simple as he would like them to be. His internal struggle and his attempts to understand what is right and wrong create a multi-layered and profound character with whom the audience can engage throughout the show. Thus, Dexter is not just a show about a killer, but about a man trying to understand what it means to be normal in a world where he himself is losing the ability to be so. The series operates on multiple levels, from psychological to philosophical, which makes it highly engaging and complex for viewers willing to immerse themselves in its dark and intriguing world. The popularity and phenomenon of Dexter. Dexter is a show that did not just gain popularity but became a true cultural milestone. Since its premiere in 2006, the series has captured the attention of audiences worldwide. Its storyline, combining elements of thriller, drama, and psychological horror, was a groundbreaking discovery for fans of the genre. Interestingly, Dexter not only drew in a broad audience but also sparked extensive discussions among psychology and criminology experts. Viewers often shared their thoughts on how the show made them reflect on justice, morality, revenge, and even personal responsibility. It provoked conversations about the nature of human cruelty and the fine line between victim and perpetrator. Additionally, the characters of the series, especially Dexter himself, became pop culture icons. Many TV fans created memes, fan art, and actively discussed various theories about the characters and events of the show. For example, fans often speculate about who in the series could become the next Dexter, or how the show could have continued if it had not ended with the 8th season. This is what makes the show unique. It encourages viewers not only to follow events on the screen but also to actively engage in discussions. Over time, Dexter became a topic of conversation on forums and social media, where viewers share their thoughts and post links to favorite episodes, quotes, and even scenes. This greatly enhances engagement with the show and makes it a part of the broader cultural dialogue, revolutionizing the genre and the legacy of Dexter. Dexter left its mark not only on pop culture but also on television itself. The show introduced audiences to a unique blend of eerie atmosphere and intriguing psychological analysis. It became a prime example of how to deeply explore a character's inner world and psychological state without straying from standard genre elements such as thriller and crime drama. The series brought numerous innovations to the TV format. It pioneered a new wave of shows where psychological and moral questions take center stage and characters like Dexter become more layered and contradictory. The show's use of flashbacks and psychological depth made its main character more complex and multidimensional. Moreover, the series inspired an entire wave of other works featuring protagonists with a dark side who remained beloved and even sympathetic characters. Over time, other shows like Breaking Bad, Mindhunter, and Hannibal began incorporating elements that Dexter had so successfully introduced. These projects also delve into character psychology and explore how a person with a dark nature can still evoke empathy. The legend of Dexter lives on. No matter how you feel about Dexter, one thing is clear: his story does not leave anyone indifferent. And if you want to gain a deeper understanding of what it means to be human, with all its strengths and weaknesses, it is worth revisiting this show to reflect once more on the nature of justice and how flexible it can be in this world. Share with your friends, and don't forget to leave a comment about your perception of Dexter. And if you haven't watched it yet, be sure to start this incredible journey into the world of morality, brutality, and inner conflict. After all, Dexter is not just a series, it is a philosophical enigma waiting to be unraveled.